Warning, the following audio transmission is based on theory and is intended for entertainment purposes only. It's Doomsday and its affiliates will not be held liable for anything your dumbass does. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to It's DoomsDay podcast. Today is Monday, July 20th, 2026, and joining me is LP. What's going on?
Just another day.
Just another day. How's everything going? Is it a good day, bad day, in between day?
No, it's been an okay day, I think.
That's good. It's been an okay day here as well. I put a new bumper on my truck. That was the highlight of my day. Yeah.
Now it's worth so much more money now, right?
Well, no, actually, yes, because the bumper that was on there was crushed in from jackknifing a trailer with about 6,000 pounds of gravel on it, and I finally got my insurance check, so I was able to replace my bumper, and now my tailgate opens again. It hasn't opened since, like, February.
Oh, that's nice.
So my truck can do truck stuff again. I'm super stoked about that. That is definitely the highlight of my day. But aside from that, everybody, welcome to It's Doomsday Podcast. The email, it's doomsdaypodcast@gmail.com. You could check us out on social media. You could find Local Prepper everywhere at Local Prepper. You could find me everywhere at Jester Dooms. Yeah. And if you haven't done so already, check out the Doom Daily Show. It's another show I do. It drops a day. And check out all LP's content on YouTube. And it's what now? At the Local Prepper Project. What is it now? It's changing all the time.
No. It's either the Local Prepper, or you can just search Local Prepper, all one word, and you'll find it everywhere on Google.
So Local Prepper space all one word at youtube.com.
Yeah, sure.
There you go. Okay, so on today's show, I wanted to talk about the Big Brother Prepper. Okay. And the Big Brother Prepper, aka FEMA.
Okay.
FEMA. Yes. So it's weird because you have I've encountered like a handful of different people over the years when it comes to FEMA. You have some preppers that are 100% for FEMA. You have some that are totally against FEMA. You have people that are in between. And then you have people that don't even know what the hell FEMA is.
It happens.
Right. So let's start with this. So oddly enough, the Greek word for victim is FEMA, but not spelled the same in any capacity. Not spelled the same in any capacity, but it's so ironic because FEMA is actually an acronym for Federal Emergency Management Agency. Okay, so it's not even a word, it's an acronym, but it's so weird that lines up and sounds exactly the same as FEMA, which is the Greek word for victim. And FEMA helps victims in the event of natural disasters. So I want to go ahead and kind of break this down because the only reason I really wanted to cover this as a topic today, because I think there's a lot of miscommunications. There's a lot of weird online conspiracies that I've experienced things firsthand that I'm like, this is bullshit. And then other things where I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. So let's break this down. First and foremost, if you're somebody who is new to the preparedness community, let me tell you this, you've been prepping as long as you've been paying taxes because so much of your federal tax dollars go to fund the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, right? Okay, so all these people out there, and this has been a thorn in my side for years since I started putting things out there in the podcast and social media. You have these people that say, oh, what you're doing is useless. That's so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Nothing's ever going to happen. And these people don't realize that they're paying in to a prepper fund for the entire country.
Correct.
They don't realize that. So it kind of begs that question. Do they even know what this is about, what they're doing? Do they even know about the agency? So FEMA's job is to send out response and aid and management to every state throughout the nation in any type of disaster, pretty much. Okay. Yep. Now, when FEMA gets activated for this, and a lot of people don't know this unless you're unless you work in emergency services, there's a whole set of basically ICS guidelines that you have to learn and know in order to work with these agents when they come out. Because FEMA are the big dogs. They come out during a disaster, they take over operations of everything. Okay. And it sounds big and it sounds scary, and it is, but it isn't, because a lot of the times it might just be a representative working with a local agency just to help them out with things like resource requests and, maybe managing resources and maybe managing extra hands that are coming in to help, things like that. So if you have a big medical disaster that's going, or a big disaster in general that's going to need long-term medical care, and say local agencies are just, they're out of resources, there's nothing more, it's FEMA's job to contract an ambulance from Texas and get them to, say, Ohio, and pay these guys with their federal funds and get them up there and give them a FEMA certificate of, you can do this right now because it's a state of national emergency, or state of disaster, and these guys can break state lines, break normal protocols, and they can come to work and get paid for out of that pool of federal funding, helping that local community that has had that disaster. Now, a resource request can be for multiple different things. It could be for additional responders to the area. It could be for gas generators, gasoline, AA batteries, MREs, maybe tents, tarps, whatever. You could put in a resource request pretty much for anything you want within reason, right? If it is obtainable, they will try to obtain it for you. They will try to get it. Some things during some situations are just sadly out of reach, but they do a pretty good job at rallying together the things you may need. Okay. Now, when we talk about the type of disasters that they could be responding out to, I mean, there's really no limitation. You're talking superstorms, earthquakes. I mean, there's not really a limitation on these things. Okay. And there's not really a disaster so big to where they're not going to come out. They're not just going to throw in the towel and say, fuck it, this is too big, we're not coming. Like, no, this is their job. That's what they do. And you don't know this, but there are FEMA agents working in pretty much every town across the nation. They're regular people that go to their jobs and come home and have a regular house and live in a regular neighborhood. Some of these people could be your neighbors and people you run into at Walmart. They are not agents that are on a FEMA base somewhere that are just waiting for shit to pop off and they get deployed. Like, no, these guys go home at night, right? That's how that works. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of misconception that FEMA will potentially come into your home, take whatever supplies you have backstocked and things like that. And I got to tell you, I can't see that being the case. In the event of a natural disaster, like LP, think about it. You're in a disaster scenario. These guys are run ragged. They're not going door to door to look for Band-Aids and MREs and things like that. There's way too much shit going on. You get what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's in the name. A lot of people kind of forget that. They're a management agency. They're not an enforcement agency. So they're not going to show up on your doorstep and try to take all your stuff. And anybody who thinks that they are is a fool.
Right. Now, there was some instances when we had Helene here, and there was a lot of controversy that got sparked online, and a lot of, God, the conspiracies that came out of that were insane. And I'd love to talk to some of those people now who were beating that in my ear, like, this is why it happened and blah, blah, blah. I heard everything from, the big one was the NC land grab, that they were stealing people's land. I haven't heard of one person getting their land stolen.
No.
Not one.
It's just people that are scared and misinformed or had some kind of, previous misconception. It's right up there with, oh my God, all the trailers are in Florida, but they won't bring them here. And it's like, man, listen, you really got it. All these guys do is process applications and put out checks. That's all they really do. I mean, they do have some management and coordination capabilities, but most of that stuff is superficial. It's really about money is what FEMA is really about.
Right. So it's kind of interesting though. Another thing that was sparked as a conspiracy was, I don't know if you remember, during Helene, there was the no-fly zones, and there was all these videos online of people were trying to fly in with helicopters and planes to offer aid, and they shut down airspace and said, no, you can't fly, and they wouldn't let these people fly. Well, there was good reasons for that, okay? And the main one was that airspace was extremely crowded. All right.
Yeah.
Because you had people just unregulated flying in wherever they wanted to fly. Like that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where it was problematic because you had so many aircraft in an area. And everybody says they're coming out to help or lend a hand or do this or do that. Some people just want to make YouTube content. Some
Yeah.
people just want to go see what happened for themselves. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
a pilot and you have your own helicopter, you have your own plane, and you have no intention of doing good, and you're flying out here, I mean, you're getting in the way,
Yeah.
right? So, all right. Also, people have to understand during that time, a lot of National Guard aircraft was up and running, doing daily operations, flying in and out
Yeah.
supplies, flying people in and out, getting people out of areas they were stuck. The amount of aircraft working in the skies was so polluted and insane. I mean, it was like being at home was like being on a military base. I had Black Ops and Hueys flying over and Chinooks flying over all day. Like it was nonstop all day long during that time frame. Along with all the other small aircraft in the area. So they had to shut this down just for safety.
Hmm.
I mean, that was the biggest thing. They had to shut down for safety just in order to keep, somebody from doing something stupid or harm to come to somebody or, God forbid you have two aircraft collide in a zone that has all these people that are getting aid, picking up MREs, all these things.
Hmm.
So they did what they did, and that part of it was true that people saw online, but at the end of the day, it wasn't for anything ominous. It was simply for the fact of we've got too many aircraft. We can't keep letting people fly in. We've got military operations going on. And the one thing that I know a little bit more now, because I've studied avionics a little bit more, and I didn't know this before, but the U.S. military can come in, and if they're running operations, they could institute no-fly zones. All right. And doesn't matter what aircraft you are, you can't cross that.
Hmm.
Okay. And the military could say, hey, we want a no fly zone in this region from this coordinate to this coordinate. And they could block out a zone. And they said, we need this from AGL to a ceiling of 6,000 feet AGL. Right. So from
Hmm.
ground level to 6,000 feet above ground level, they could institute this no fly zone. Right. Or they could go up to 10,000, whatever they want to go to. And this doesn't inhibit like commercial airliners that are at 30,000 feet. They could still travel their routes, do whatever they need to do. But this pretty much stops all small aircraft.
Hmm.
And I didn't get any confirmation or hear if that's what happened. But I bet your ass that's what happened. And nobody thought to point the finger in that direction. Was, the military came in, they put in a new no-fly zone in FEMA, and, these other people were simply the ones to enforce it and be like, no, you guys can't fly anything in. Maybe. It's very possible.
Yeah.
But aside from that, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a very differing opinion on that as an actual pilot. The FAA controls all that stuff, and the military can set up no-fly zones, but it's got to go through the FAA. Where FEMA, once again, it's a management agency, and during that period of time, let's face it, it was a different administration. They weren't really doing the job that they were supposed to be doing. They literally were just the guys who filled out paperwork and tried to get people money. Whether that happened or not, that's another coinkydink that happened during that time period people complained about. But
Right.
which kind of really made FEMA look like complete failures, to be honest with you. If you got Glenn Beck coming in there to do an expose, it's an issue. I would also point to the fact that if you remember Katrina, it was the largest aviation/helicopter rescue effort ever done in the entire world. And we had zero problems with the aviation, with helicopters flying so close to each other all the damn time. And the reason is because they came, the military, the Coast Guard was involved, that pretty much every level of government was involved, and they set up aviation control areas where there was ways in and ways out of the area. They had specific routes they had to fly. And none of that happened during Helene. It was a free-for-all, and frankly, all of the civilian aircraft that showed up only showed up because the response was so slow. And that's the real difference between the civilian community and the government. The civilian community, they can do stuff. They can just flip a switch and go. Well, you've got the government and they're going to wait for this, that, and the other thing. And it's just generally a slower response. So,
Gotcha.
I saw some of those videos. You got that one sheriff that was trying to run people off. Oh, I own this. This is my place. Oh, I'll arrest you. If you do this, I'll arrest you. And it's like, that guy never got frickin' arrested. It was all a joke. It was a giant power trip because there was mass confusion because the Federal Emergency Management Office completely failed to manage at that level. So you had all these counties out there doing a free-for-all until the government started to look bad, and then the government stuck its head in there and kind of took charge of things. And that's why you started seeing more of those National Guard helicopters doing stuff.
So let me ask you this. What do you think the reason was for them preventing aircraft from coming in then?
I'm sorry, you blurred out. What was the reason for what?
Okay, so I've had my speculations on why they were preventing aircraft from coming in. Why do you think they were preventing aircraft from coming in?
More than likely, it probably had everything to do with military aviation not wanting to operate with civilian aviation. Listen, military helicopters. I personally, coming up, going through pilot training, almost flew my Cessna 172 into a Cobra attack helicopter because they just kind of come out of nowhere. All right. And them flying in such close proximity, well, they probably had a couple of near miss incidents, and the military just talked to the FAA and said, just lock this off. That way only we're flying around because we have a specific way that we fly, which is really no different than a civilian pilot would fly. And they just locked it off because that was their way to control things. And then obviously that's going to rub everybody the wrong way when you've got all these civilians that are putting out all this money to come try and help and then being told that they can't.
Right.
That's un-American. It's un-American. What they should have done is they should have just set up a coordination point and then controlled all the aircraft coming in through there. They could have easily just filed NOTAMs for that area, notice to airmen. Every pilot on the planet knows what a NOTAM is, and they check them before they take off or fly into an area. So, and that's all they had to do. But their solution was just to block the whole area off for military operations only.
Now, so basically, because I've been on this kick where I didn't think it was for anything ominous. Would you agree it was for nothing ominous? Like they didn't have any bad intentions with that?
No, yeah, it was complete. No, there was no bad intention. It was not ominous in any way. That's your typical tinfoil hat type thinking that people like to tell stories and everybody likes to regurgitate them.
Right, exactly. So now I will say this. So I've been pretty pro FEMA throughout this episode thus far. Okay. Now I will tell you about some limiting things, or I don't know if I would call them limiting things, but some things I did notice when we were encountering them and interacting with them and things that I didn't like. All right. And the first and foremost was their coordination when you consider that, hey, this is a moment's notice, drop of a hat, superstorm hit. Nobody knew this was going to create this much destruction and do this much damage. We didn't know what we were in for. I mean, they got people here pretty much overnight, right? It was absolutely glorious in the realm of first responders, in the realm of, emergency personnel. When it came to the infrastructure side of things, we did not see a turnout. We did not see that, right?
Yeah.
That was not something that we noticed. Although granted, it would be hard to notice because if somebody owns a tree cutting service in fucking Florida and they're up here, the only way that truck is going to stand out is based on a different state's license plate, right? Or if they got a name on their business, Joe Blow Tree Incorporated, Miami, Florida, right? That's the only way that's going to stand out. With every other vehicle, they had a temp FEMA tag, and you knew they were contracted by FEMA. Now, we desperately needed infrastructure rebuilt here to function, right? The amount of down trees, the amount of collapsed roadways, the amount of down bridges, like the amount of that stuff, and actually needing guys with machines and tools and equipment to get up here and cut a road in to get to this town so these people could get out, or come out here and rebuild the bridge so these people could get back to their town, right?
Yeah.
That was one thing that rubbed me the wrong way is we didn't see any immobilization of anybody in that capacity. The best we got initially was like up armored backhoes and shit from the National Guard. And these guys were not really tasked well, so they were bored out of their fucking minds with not much to do, right?
Yeah, that's sad.
I'm not saying all of them were, but the guys that were stationed with us were just like, we're just going to go cut up that tree in that yard over there because we're fucking bored. And it's like, okay, man, you do your thing, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
But, so what we experienced was a lot of local people pulling machinery out of the woodwork or getting a machine from their cousin and coming out and saying, hey, I'm going to get a track hoe. What roads need cleared? I'm going up there. And it was limiting to even try to get people into certain areas based on our own local government, not so much FEMA, but trying to grant them permission to go in to get things done. Like they couldn't just go in there. They had to have a purposeful mission.
mhm.
Like you had to be going in for something. You couldn't just go in, right? And because we were having problems happening from people going in and getting stuck or whatever else. Now, the other thing is that FEMA did disrupt some local operations we had going on and we had planned. All right. And they did overtake some things that I wasn't particularly happy about. We were tasked to walk a riverbed that I don't know if in my mind, I think we were tasked with like 5 miles of it, right? Which
Mhm.
an actual like search, rescue, recovery operation over a 5 mile span, that's a big ass area.
Yeah.
Like if you're going for a walk around town, if you're going on a hike or something, 5 miles doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're tasked to do something over the course of 5 miles, that's going to take you all goddamn day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and maybe you might need more than one team to go in because you might not be able to get through the whole damn thing, depending on conditions. Okay.
Mhm.
So we spent a day or two gearing up, trying to find personnel to do this operation. Okay. And last minute, we got cut from that and they took over.
Hmm.
Now, the thing that pissed me off primarily about that was first off, this is my fucking town. I live here,
Yeah.
that's first and foremost. The second thing that pissed me off is like we were rallying people up. We were taking people that could have been placed in other areas where they may have been more efficient or may have been more beneficial to potentially task them with this. And then with very short notice, we're cut off from that task. And for the life of me, I don't really understand why. Unless they were expecting so many bodies and they wanted to keep it under wraps and didn't want it to get out, because I was informed that the more bodies, the more deaths, the more money they have to pay out to an area. I don't know if that's true or not.
Mhm.
But apparently that somehow, from my understanding, is it changes the statistics of what this area needs based on the death toll, right? And
Yeah.
again, I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I was told that's kind of why we were kicked out of there because they didn't want us going around sharing information with family, friends, other agencies about what we may see,
Mm.
which, I mean, we all kind of know not to do that. We work in this capacity, like we know we're not supposed to do that, but you know what happens. A guy tells his wife tells her friend tells her sister's got a big mouth, and now everybody knows, so that maybe that was the reason why. So that was one thing that really rubbed me the wrong way, was getting kicked off of operations that we were doing. And then 6 to 1, half dozen in the other. When we were actually on search, rescue, recovery ops, a lot of the times their agents were nowhere to be found. Like they were non-existent. And I mean, their vehicles stand out. This is a federal government vehicle, FEMA plaster on the side. Like, a FEMA vehicle when you see it. You cannot
Mhm.
confuse these with Border Patrol or Highway Patrol or anything else. You know it when you see it. And on a lot of these areas that was like, it took extra manpower or whatever, their agents were not there. So another thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, their management, what do you expect to happen?
Well, yeah, I know, but whenever you have an agent going over here to an airport and saying, no, y'all can't fly, you have another agent coming over here saying, no, you guys can't perform this operation. And then you have another agent over here kind of doing nothing, like just bullshitting with you about what's going on. And you're watching like the limitations of things, realizing like, hey, we need excavators, skid steers, backhoes, we need all these things to come in here, and we need trucks of gravel, this, that, the other. It was like, you know, I understand that in certain capacity, certain things come first, but at the end of the day, with how destroyed everything was, that's what was really needed,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, from what I saw, the National Guard did way more for us than FEMA did. I don't know how much FEMA was behind what they were doing. Like, that's something you really can't see because FEMA might have did a lot, right? But it was like the National Guard. It was the National Guard flying in water, flying in MREs, flying in supplies. It was them. It was our local DOT guys that were rebuilding the roads and the infrastructure. It was Hillbilly Jim down the road with his track hoe coming out and reopening roads. And the thing that, and this is kind of a sidetrack thing, but the one agency that came in to create the most problems was the Army Corps of Engineers. Those fuckers. And I don't know how much they were working with FEMA. I really don't. But if FEMA wanted to do anything right, they should have railroaded those guys and told them to get the fuck out. That's what they should have did. But yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, I guess the whole point of this episode was FEMA is nothing to fear. Okay, it's very okay to have an opinion, to be for it or against it. Either way, you're paying for it, right? Personal experiences, they got resources in my area to keep us surviving. Could they have done a better job? Yes. But when you're working with an agency that is only activated in times of disaster and isn't proactively going out and running drills in rural communities, you kind of got to take what you can get, I guess. So, but that's it. That's all I got. You got anything you want to add?
Yeah. Just one more simple thing. We're from the government and we're here to help.
Don't say that. There goes all our listeners. Fed. They're the feds. I forgot about that. They're feds, man. I swear they're feds.
Yeah.
Shit. Wish I was a fed. Be making a lot more money. But all right, that's about all we got. We'll be back here next week for another exciting episode of the DoomsDay Podcast. Woohoo!
This is an emergency action message. At approximately 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NORA is tracking 15 ICBM nuclear missiles inbound to the following cities: Orlando, Miami, Pittsburgh, Dover, Newark, Richland, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, Seattle, Detroit. This is an extremely deadly situation. Stay tuned. The next emergency message will be a presidential address.